Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian M. Hauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger, and it is fun. It is fun to finally get to have a conversation with our trio of friends and co-hosts on this show. We have got the chewing Nathan Ernst. I'm going to give him a second. I was going to be a jerk and send it right to him, but I'm going to let him finish chewing. Dayna O'Gorman's with us tonight at Dayna OG. Dayna, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm sorry, Nathan. Correct me. It's awesome. Nathan.
What's that shirt you're wearing there, Dayna?
That would be a Royals shirt. I know it's bitter for Mariners fan, but we're so excited in Kansas City. The Royals won tonight against the Orioles, so now they get to go play the Yankees, which, super fun. But they get to play them here, so that'll be nice and to start off. But for my Seahawks people, the last time the Royals did well was 14-15, and we know what happened in those years. And so the Seahawks and the Royals really truly just go hand in hand, and we need to keep that in mind. So maybe this is a really good sign for
the
our
Blues
Seahawks
are even kind of similar.
I know.
Like there's a little connection there. I will say I don't think almost any Mariners fans begrudges the Royals for their success. I think everybody feels pretty clearly that the Mariners have been hoisted by their own petard, so to speak. So, I think there's more anger at Mariners ownership than there is at other teams. So, hey, and look, the Tigers, 2-up 2-0 on the Astros. That's goodness. I mean, if we're not going to get our own pleasure, we might as well take pleasure in other people's misery. So that would be nice to see. Nathan at Nathan E11. Good to see you, my friend. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Just managed to fit my dinner in under the wire. So yeah, doing great. How about you? How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing pretty well. I will admit that the travel is like, I'm too old for the travel. Like the quick turnarounds, not getting any sleep. I got a ton of respect for the guys that have been doing it and gals that have been doing it for year after year after year. Some of them doing it for multiple sports, like no break. And I think what a lot of folks don't realize about covering sports is there's really no weekend. So, and there's not really a night. Like there's just kind of, it's on, which for me, I mostly like, but projecting that out over 20 years, like it's a grind. It's a grind. But I'm glad you kind of asked, because my first question for you guys is, how are you? Because I've been, in my little, vacuum, echo chamber, I don't know, of like my reaction to this game. And I'm going to spoil the system a little bit by sharing like where my head's been. I was literally just watching the game again. It's my first time like rewatching it this week. And my overwhelming response to that game was, I was so proud of the team. Like every single time they got punched in the mouth, they punched back and they kept punching back. And these weren't like little like jabs that they were getting. It was like, hey, man, like having the quarterback catch a touchdown on you, having like, as soon as you score, get a 70-yard bust. Like these are haymakers that were being delivered to just really knock you out of the game. And they just kept coming back, and there were some amazing plays. So that's been my reaction to this game, but I know that that's not what a lot of people's reaction to this game was. And Dayna, I want to start with you, because I think you were in a different place watching this. So like, what was your vibe? What's your reaction when you watched this game?
I was really irritated through most of it, to be honest with you. Yeah. I just was so frustrated with what I saw going on. And listen, I am someone who, I get the injuries. I get not having, your talent on the field. I understand all that. I also, Brian, like you, picked the Lions to go to the Super Bowl this year. So I understood the dynamic of that team and what we were going up against. What was frustrating for me had nothing to do with the offense. The offense was brilliant. I was thrilled with what I was seeing. I was so excited for Geno to just, every time he went out there, he just looked so good. It was very, I think I said bothersome to me to have Jared Goff have a perfect game. And it was bothersome to me that on some plays, the defense looked lost. They were spinning in circles. I'm not blaming the coaches. I know that we have gotten to a place with this fan base that you are not allowed to speak ill of Mike McDonald. And I get that. I'm not speaking ill of Mike McDonald. It was the talent. There was no execution on some of these plays on the field with the defense. And that's what I love, right? And so I wanted to see this defense. I just kept thinking, if the defense could just slow them down a little bit, Geno will get them. That was my whole thing. And I was so irritated. I went back and I rewatched the game with much clearer eyes the second time. But at the same time, it was frustrating to me because I just couldn't help see those plays where, oh yeah, there it is. Now they're getting it. And then they'd fall off the cliff again. It drove me a little crazy. But I never expected them to win this game from the get. So I don't know. It was a hard place to be.
Nathan, where were you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you say the team kept getting punched in the face and the team kept coming right back and punching as hard as they were getting punched. But that's not exactly what happened. The defense kept getting punched in the face and they just stood there like a rag doll and got punched in the face, down in, down out, every play. The players didn't execute. They had backups, set factors. They had some players make mistakes. Mike did not coach a good game. Like, he at no point did he. Well, there's one coach that we can talk bad about and one coach we can talk good about, and Mike's the one we can talk bad about because he just got curb stomped over and over by Ben Johnson and had no answer to it. But you're right. Ryan Grubb and Geno Smith and the offense would then turn around and be like, I don't care. They kept coming back and they punched themselves in the face a little bit with the DK fumble. And they had, that's the thing that like you can really take away from this, I think, is, they've played the Lions a lot. We talked about this last week. They've had like 30 touchdowns and between both teams combined, last 3 games. So we've seen this team perform really, really well against the Lions. And I think there's some reasons why about, how their line is constructed and things like that. But, Pete's gone. Are they going to still have that never give up mentality? And yeah, I mean, on the offense, at least they never gave up. On defense, they never started. So they also never gave up there. But yeah, I mean, that's where I come away with it. Like, I think every part of that defense, including Mike McDonald, needs to have a get right game against this Giants team. They need to come out and prove that they can perform, that they're good players, that like, there's a reason why we're kind of excited about guys like Mike Morris and Miles Adams and some of those guys, and that there's a reason why we think Mike McDaniel's a genius coach. Yeah, I think they have a lot to prove coming out of this, but the offense was stellar, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I figured we were all kind of in different places, and I don't actually think the defense just didn't punch back. I think, like, for example, I was just watching, one example was the 70-yard touchdown to Jameson Williams. Kayvon Wallace blitzed on that play. He wasn't supposed to blitz. It was obvious that both safeties blitzed, so there was nobody in the post. And that wasn't a bad call by Mike McDonald. That was a player, either misunderstanding or just doing the wrong thing. And the Lions had the right call and they took advantage of it. Like, I don't see that as like, oh, they weren't fighting back. And I also saw a defense that did start out the game with a 3-and-out and a sack, and did in the fourth quarter hold the Lions for a chance for the Seahawks to tie. So I'm not gonna. I've been very like forthright about the fact that the defense. I mean, no one should say that was a good game or an acceptable performance, or like say, yeah, don't be upset about the defense. Like, I get that. Like, no arguments there. But I also think people have a skewed perception of what the level of good defense can be, or how bad a good defense can be in any given game. The times that I saw, the Legion of Boom in 2013 get run over, passed over by Matt Schaub, get, burned by, Carson Palmer and, the Arizona Cardinals. like there were some pretty ugly games there that were like 450, 500 yards, but it happens. And so I guess I don't assume that this is the end of the world. My biggest frustration, or at least concern, my biggest like red flag about the defense was the tackling issues, because especially even looking ahead past the Giants to the 49ers, you talk about a team that you've got to be able to make tackles on receivers and backs at the second level. That would, if they tackle like that against the 49ers, it won't be a close game. And so that to me was the most alarming. And then I agree with what you said, Dayna. I think the more time you spend like really hammering on the Seahawks defense and not acknowledging how good the Lions game plan was, how well they executed it, how well Jared Goff played, I think feels a little bit myopic. Like that was a really, really well played game by the Lions offense.
It really was. I think what frustrated me the most, and again, we always say everything's shiny on paper until your injuries start to pick up, and I get that, but it was more about Ben Johnson had a great plan, and there didn't seem to be a lot of adjustments on our side. And we had seen them do that. I mean, we saw them do it brilliantly in a couple of games, and they weren't making the adjustments needed, unless they were, and Ben Johnson was just adjusting that fast right back. Those are the things we don't know, right? Like that's the in-depth stuff we don't know, because we're not standing on the sideline or in those conversations. But I think Nathan is right to a certain extent that this defense just was not what we wanted or needed it to be. And yet I think there is a caveat that there are understandable why. I don't think that should forgive them. And one thing that made me feel a lot better was actually when you had mentioned that how angry Mike McDonald was. You said that he was seething, I think is the word that you used. And that actually encouraged me a little bit, because I've been on the fence with this coach for a minute, right? But I think that made me happy, because one thing that drove me crazy about Pete, and I love Pete. I'm not a cultist, Evan, but I do love the Pete. But is that he sometimes would seem to blow off those games and wouldn't, like, you could see where he's irritated and aw shucks, but seething, that's what I like about Mike Tomlin. So that's what I like. And when you said that, I was like, okay, he gets it. He knows that I used the word disaster and it made Jeff real mad, but this disaster was not acceptable to him, and he knew they could do better, which to me then also reinforces the fact that I also think that they can be much better.
It was absolutely a disaster.
Yeah.
Like defensively.
You got so mad when I said that.
I mean, unquestionably, it was a disaster on defense. I don't think it could have gone that much worse than it did.
Right.
I just, it's really fascinating to me, like the different reactions to it, because I judge him as a head coach, not just as a defensive guy. And one of the biggest indicators of a coach at all is how the team responds in adverse situations, especially on the road, especially when you got a lot of young players. And there were so many chances for them to just lay down, and it didn't happen. And so, like, even the Draymond Jones safety at the end, like, no, was the defense playing well, but were they like giving full effort to try to salvage something? Yeah. So like, it's very odd. I don't think I've left a double-digit loss, that optimistic in a long time. And so, yeah, it's been interesting to hear different perspectives. Nathan, you look like you had something you wanted to add.
No, I mean, I think you've talked a lot this week about, hey, what does this mean for the Mike McDonald regime and the Mike McDonald era for the Seahawks? Very little. Really, no one game can mean that much for any coach's like career trajectory or time with the team. Mm-hmm. I feel like, I mean, yeah, disaster is almost kind. Like, it was the Was it the most or the second most like EPA per play that the Seahawks have given up in a game over the last 14 years? Obviously, no incompletions, and yeah, like Derek Hall made a nice play, Draymond Jones made a nice play, but like outside of a couple individual guys just like making a play, I don't think to just like, oh, well, on the Jameson Williams thing, Kayvon Wallace blitzed and he shouldn't have. Well, okay, first of all, whose job is it to coach Kayvon Wallace? Second of all, what about the 50 other points that they got? You know what I mean? Like, this is not one play. And I think the thing that was really, really disappointing to me is it was down in and down out. It wasn't like they were forcing third downs and couldn't get out the field. It wasn't like they had a couple fluke plays. It wasn't like they were just injured, like they're injury riddled, penalty riddled, or something like that. Like, it was just like every run was a first down and like just gashed constantly. And yeah, so like I definitely, like, I understand maybe the impulse to be a little defensive of Mike, and I understand, like, I definitely see, like, yeah, they didn't give up, and the offense especially really tried to surge and overcome a lot. But man, that was a really terrible game. I don't have any real feel goods about that. That's a, hey, let's quick play the Giants and get that one out of our mouth.
Can I say this though? I want to thank Mr. Hall for teaching me a new rule in the NFL. I didn't know you couldn't horse collar a quarterback. I had no idea. So I loved that sack, but I thought instantly saw it. I'm like, oh crap. And then they're like, oh no, you can't do that. It's like, yes, I didn't know that. You guys probably knew it. I didn't know.
No, I think everyone's going to start horse collaring quarterbacks. If that's the one thing that they can do in the pocket to them now, you're going to see quarterbacks just yanked by their collar like all the time.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I really do hear you, Nathan, and I think if you watch that game, it's almost unwatchable when the Lions have the ball. Like, it's a very hard watch, and the questions to ask there are, how much of it was great execution, great game planning, great play by the Lions? How much of it was poor game planning, poor execution, poor play by the Seahawks? How much of the issues for the Seahawks on their side were mistakes versus not as good as the people across from them? And that's a really hard one to answer, I think. Watching the game the first time, I thought Devin Witherspoon had a bad game. Watching it a second time, I think it wasn't as bad as I thought. I think there's some other guys that played much, much worse. So, I haven't mentioned the injuries once. That's the first time I'm bringing them up. It's hard for me to imagine that didn't lead or contribute to some of the issues communication-wise, potentially to some of the calls that they felt comfortable making or not making. I don't know. So, like, I guess going into that game, I think expectations always have so much to do with how I feel exiting. I went into that game feeling like house money. Like, they're missing most of their starters. This is a Super Bowl team with a great offense that can do everything on offense. If they can figure out how to beat this team or be competitive defensively, we're like Super Bowl contenders. And so I leave saying, we're still not. Like, we're not yet. Like, and like, but I also am thinking, oh, I didn't know that the offense could do what it did in that situation, and that it could run the way it ran, and that Kenneth Walker could be the difference maker he looks like he could be, and DK could there's a lot of things there. I was like, oh, I didn't expect all of that to come. So that was kind of cool. But
I guess the other thing there too is we have seen the offense put up a ton of points on this Lions team before. And so that maybe takes a little of the shine off of it for me. Like, not to take any credit away from the offense. They played incredibly, and that's awesome. But we've seen them play incredibly against the Lions before and still have like uneven moments and some of this stuff. So it's a little bit of like, okay, on offense, they kind of just did what I expected them to. And oh God, what happened on defense, right? But yeah, I mean, like, I think, like I said, you've talked about this all week. What does this mean for Mike Macdonald as a head coach? Probably not much, right? We'll see over the next couple weeks what it means, right? We'll see against Kyle Shanahan what it means. But it's one game, and if if it, like you're saying, they didn't quit. The offense like kept them in that game all the way. And when you have a total disaster game like that, and you can still say that about one aspect of your game, like obviously it could be a lot worse even.
Can I say too how happy I am? This is so weird for me. But the Lions were so excited they beat us.
Yeah.
I know they had been a long time, but those fans, they were coming out all over. It's like, we beat the Seahawks. I'm like, that's really cool. I don't know. It's like, I'm sad they won, but at the same time, I was like, that was a big deal to them. And so I think that says something too about the longevity and the name behind it. And yes, beating them so many times, but you know, it could have been, well, they're just not very good this year and not been that big of a deal, but it was a big deal. So I don't know. For some reason that took some of the sting out of it.
I think that's actually a really good point, Dayna. Like I felt it in the city that while I was there was sports radio. I was listening to it. They were talking about this game a lot. And, you know, obviously I got like, you know, the offensive coordinators keep some powder dry, like and they don't want to call certain plays until later in the season. They don't want to show their hand. This felt to me like Ben Johnson was like, we are emptying the friggin' clip. Like everything we've got is coming out in this game. And like, there's nothing held back.
Yeah.
They wanted this game. I think they really wanted this game. And to be totally honest, I think the Seahawks still almost got it. Like, I still believe that. Like, DK doesn't fumble. That was a legitimate fumble, but like that last play call, even just forget the DK fumble. If you don't get that offensive pass interference and the Seahawks tie up the game, probably the Lions score and they win and whatever, but it's not 100% to me. And like for them to have all of that going their way and still, that's just where my head goes. And you guys have seen me put a bag over my head, so I'm not afraid to say like when I'm embarrassed about my own team. I just have a very different reaction this week, but you know, okay. I think that's a really good call out. I wanted to do an old segment. We've done this before. It's been a while, but I want to do, it's 4 games into the season. I want to do, what did you get wrong? What did you get wrong? What did you think about this team, about a player, about the coaching that so far has not been true? Like, what's a take that you had that you're like, I think I was off on that? And I can go first. Because I want to give you guys some time to think. I'll give you a couple. And someone called this out this morning. And this is kind of a weak one because I don't know that I feel like I really got it wrong, but the player has proven to be better than what I was seeing in preseason. So that, like, it's a little bit of hedge. I'll come up with a better one where I literally was wrong. But AJ Barner had his first touchdown, had a nice reception, has been a decent blocker. I didn't see it in preseason. I didn't see it in practice, and I'm not sure other people saw it either. But he's come on. Like he doesn't look like he's the next coming, second coming of Travis Kelce or something like that. But he is having a promising season for a rookie tight end, and so that's one that I would say maybe I got wrong.
He looks like if they let Fant walk and they just like roll with him and like Pharaoh Brown on a vet min or whatever. I don't think Pharaoh Brown's making a whole lot. Like, that's totally cool. Like, I'm not going to stress that at all, which is great for a rookie tight end, mid-round pick and all that. Dayna, do you have a good one?
I don't know how good it is, but I can tell you how wrong I was. First of all, I mean, our record, I had us at 2-2. I even thought that this could be 1-3 at this. I thought it would take them a minute to settle in, and we didn't know what we were going to get out of Denver, although I had a strong feeling that we'd beat them. But they started so much stronger than I thought they would. I truly thought it would take a little while to settle in to the new schemes, the new coaches, the new everything, right? So that one I definitely got wrong. The other one I got wrong is this offense. So you guys had me talked into, and fair, absolutely fair, that this defense was going to be just screaming and Ryan Grubb was going to be great, but I thought it might take the offense a little while to settle in. Also, I thought maybe Geno changing over, that sort of thing would take a little, maybe I always say 6 games, right? It takes 6 games really to settle in. Well, the offense, we've had a couple of missteps, and most of that I think has been due to injury and just a much more complicated defense that they're having to learn. I think that's a huge part of it. But man, this offense is just screaming, and it makes me. I'm so, and I don't even care about offense all that much, but I'm real happy. I'm happy for Gino. I'm happy for DK and JSN that all that's working, and that even though you don't like it, Nathan, the run game just looks so good. So yeah, I'm real happy about that. Definitely wrong.
Nathan, you got one?
I have a couple. I don't know that I've been spectacularly wrong on anything, which is a change for me, but and feel free to point out if I'm forgetting something. I definitely thought Byron Murphy was going to have a bigger impact right off the bat. Not to say he's bad, but he hasn't been a difference maker, I don't think. Was a little skeptical of the Charles Cross hype coming out of training camp and everything. There was one other thing I was going to say, but I think the biggest thing maybe is Connor Williams. I was extremely skeptical of what he would actually contribute to the team and whether he could, how soon he could get on the field and all that kind of stuff. And he's been a positive, and he's been out there, I think, every snap, right? So yeah, it's probably the one I missed the most. So I was probably just too cautious about what he could actually contribute, at least right away.
All right, I'll give you three I thought of while you guys were talking that I got wrong. One was an official prediction that Draymond Jones was going to lead the team in sacks. I went off book. He does have 2.
He's looking better too. I feel like he's getting better every week.
It's not like out of the realm, but I just think the other guys look like they're going to be outpacing him. So that's probably wrong. The other 2, I really expected Ryan Grubb to have a more creative run game, run offense. Like the run offense has been pretty vanilla so far, and I expected a little bit more misdirection. We did see like an orbit motion kind of toss play. That's the kind of stuff I was expecting to see more of. So maybe it's just coming, but so far that has not been there. And then what was the third thing? Oh, darn it. Came and went. Darn it. Hopefully I'll remember it, but I've been wrong about, who did I say was going to? What?
You'll remember it during Patreon questions.
I probably will.
Shoot it out.
I probably will. Let's get to some super chats. Warren John, thank you for the super chat. He says, "Are we sure the defense isn't 2023 week to 4 to 6 defense?" And I think he's talking about that it was looking good before, like they played the Ravens. Like there was a period of time where it was good. I think that's what he's getting at. So like that. Are we sure that the first 3 weeks weren't just a mirage? Let me ask it a different way. Can we know what the Seahawks defense is after the first 3 weeks opponents and then the amount of guys that were hurt against Detroit? Can we know? I don't think we can know yet.
I don't think you know anything really about a team till week 6. I just don't. I think especially if you've had as many changes as Seattle has, I don't think you can really get a good grasp of who a team is. So no, I don't think. I think it's too early to tell. I think, to be totally honest with you, with a new head coach and 2 new coordinators, you almost have to give it a year and see really kind of what they end up molding into, how they react to these losses. So this game against New York, although it's against New York, so that will color it for some people, will tell us a lot about this defense and what they do to respond. I think how they play the Niners will tell us even more. And so I think that you just kind of have to get through some of this before you truly have an idea.
What do you think, Nathan?
I mean, I think we're learning some stuff, but what it all means, I don't think we really can say quite yet. I'm skeptical. I was at first skeptical that you said, Dayna, that we'll learn against the Giants. I guess the one thing that we could learn is, like, it's a bad team and they may not have neighbors. It's bad offense and they may not have neighbors. If they struggle against the Giants, though, and they still don't have a lot of these guys back, then that's even just more, because we know the defense can dominate bad quarterbacks. Like, that's been shown. So if they come out and they look, average or worse against the Giants, then I think we can really look and say, okay, these injuries are causing a lot more issues than you'd maybe even think for how significant they are.
Yeah. Well, it would also, it's going to tell us a little bit about how Mike Macdonald's able to get his defense to correct errors, in this period of time. But yeah, I think that that's also true.
I'm popping this one with super chat up because this guy. Wait, you can't see my fingers. Me up here. I'm not. I'm a little surprised. He's even better than I thought. But I think I may be the only Derek Hall believer from like day
No.
one. No?
Are you kidding? Do you not remember the argument that I got into with everyone after that draft? And I'm like, I'm telling you guys, I thought he was really good. And everyone at the draft said that was the perfect pick for Seattle. And you were like, all of you were like, no.
No. I always like
Maybe
Hall.
not you,
I
but
was
I
pro
know that
Hall. All right,
Jeff
so
and
me
Brian
and
weren't.
Dayna were way out in front on Derek Hall.
Who knew? No, I'm just kidding.
My Derek Hall story arc was hated the pick. Saw him in first preseason game, truck a guy with power that I was like, oh, that's what he brings, because I didn't see the bend. I got excited and then saw that first season and I was like, okay, I guess this guy's a stiff. And now, as soon as I saw him in training camp, I was like, okay, we got somebody. So I was definitely wrong initially. Not wrong going into the season, but I love that. I love that call out. Corey Coleman, who's been a member for 2 months. Thank you so much, Corey, for sticking with us for 2 months. Says, tough loss, but let's get right this week against the Giants. I'd rather be healthy and winning in December and January than in September and early October. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Corey, that, knock on wood, whatever you superstitious stuff, the injuries that we've had have not been, debilitating to the point where you don't have hope that this will get back together. But it's a rough one right now. There's a long injury report. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Jeremy Damon, thank you for the super chat. He says, the real problem was Myers missed a field goal. Hey, Evan, this one's for you. In absentia, we're still thinking about you, bud. So, yeah, that was a pretty embarrassing 62-yard field goal. Like 62 yards indoors is actually not a crazy distance. And he made it look like it was a 50-yard field goal into hurricane gale force winds. Like it didn't come close. That was bad. All right. We got that. Dayna, we should probably get into patron questions at this point. If you haven't already subscribed, please go over to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up there, get access to the Slack channel where you can ask us questions every week like these folks are about to. Dayna, what do we got?
Well, this first question is actually for Evan. And so Troy sent Evan a question. I just want you to know, Troy, that I sent that to Evan. So hopefully he will be able to come back and actually answer that for you. It's about cap specifics. I'll read it. It says, for Evan, for cap specifics on if they could make it work, can extensions get done for Geno, DK, Cross, and Woolen? If not, who's the odd man out? So we'll let Evan answer that one. Brian, this one is from Colin. Today, Daniel Jeremiah hypothesized multiple teams bidding for Geno if he keeps performing this way. Do you think Seattle would invest $50 million plus or minus for him? If not, are we comfortable turning it all over to Howell next year?
It's such an easy question for me of what I think they should do. It is a really tough question to evaluate what the Seahawks would do. If Geno continues to play at this level, how can you not keep him? Like, what are you doing? Like, even if you're going to set up Sam Howell, talk about setting him up for failure. Like, let's say that Geno, who's leading the NFL in passing yards right now, having the best season of his career, touchdowns aren't, that isn't yet perfectly where it will be, but like all the signs are there. And then you let him go and Sam Howell has to come and do what? Like, play anywhere close to that level? I don't think that's realistic for anybody. I think most likely that they would end up paying for him, and I think it would be a hard swallow. There is some chance. I'm going to bring this up. I haven't thought about this before the question was asked, but I'm going to say it right now. There is some chance that John Schneider would look at it and say, similar to the Russ situation, here's a guy at the top of his value. He's 34 at that point. Can I trade him in his final year and get a boatload of draft picks from somebody? that I don't like it, but do I think that's out of the realm of possibilities for how John would think about this? No. So I would say 60 to 70% chance they would sign him, that they would extend him.
I think the thing that's really changed the math on this for me is the number of head coaches out there that will have direct familiarity with Gino and will maybe bang the drum for him. Like Canales could do it. Ryan Grubb, when he's head coaching the Giants next year, probably going to be screaming to go get Gino. So yeah, like the thing that's limited Gino before is, hey, do NFL executives really want to put their career on the line with him? But that could change. There could be people directly familiar that want him.
I agree. I think if he plays this well, it's a different situation than the last time he was a free agent.
Okay, so we have a handful of questions about the trade deadline, which is actually on Election Day, November 5th. So Nathan, I'm going to give this one to you. It's from Imani. Does anyone on the pod predict a move before the deadline or an in-season extension?
In-season extension. I don't even know who would be on that list. So I'm not sure on that one. I think there will be a move, but probably not anything significant. But I think they're a good team, and they could be looking to fill in some holes potentially, but a Diggs type move, like that level of move where, hey, is there somebody that can maybe give them a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a boost, not cost a lot, and they can try to, bet a little bit more on this year with the way things have gone so far.
One guy that I wonder about for an in-season extension, Tyrell Dodson comes to mind.
Yeah.
I'm checking to see if there's anyone else that. Oh, that was the other thing I got wrong. Laviska Shenault. I thought Laviska Shenault was going to be a much bigger part of this offense. He looked great on the tunnel screen. They just have not done much more of that. So I think Tyrell Dodson, to me, is a guy that you want to build around. I think he should be the center of this defense for years to come. That'd be probably my best guess.
Good one. All right. All right, Brian, I'll give this one to you. It's from Hunter. We all heard John say in the offseason that he thought guards were overdrafted and overpaid. Later, a report came out that J.C. Latham was one of his main targets, with the thought of a conversion. I think he means conversion to guard. It says conversation. Do you think either they had Latham graded so high he broke what John's overall consensus was on the guard position, or that John's statements on guard were part of a draft season smokescreen?
I don't think John has hard and fast rules about positions. I think that we all heard what he said, and I think he believes that to be true, but he had never picked a defensive tackle in the first round before this year. He had never picked a wide receiver or a cornerback in the first round before last year. Like, he will go where he thinks the best talent is, and if he thought Latham was a game-changing player that he had graded more highly than Byron Murphy or whoever else, I think he just would have gone by that evaluation. So I think we probably make a little bit more about these little offhand comments he makes than he does.
Awesome. Okay. Let me see. I think we already kind of answered this, but if the Seahawks, or Nathan actually already answered this, if the Seahawks can't beat the Giants, how concerned are you about the early stages of the McDonald era? Brian, since Nathan kind of answered that before, does it give you great concern?
Well, I mean, not about McDonald. I am 100% in on Mike McDonald. Okay. It would take a year's worth of degradation of performance and players quitting on. Like, it would take a lot, and I just don't see it happening. What it would do is, I think it scuttles the season a little bit. Like, I don't think the season's over by any stretch, but I think the Seahawks right now, they're kind of scratching at the door in the NFC. Like, they're not in it, but if a couple things go their way in terms of them putting things together, they are legitimate, like, NFC contenders, which that I think goes away if you lose to the Giants. I think you're just not going to get there.
Okay. All right, Nathan. This one is from Sovereign Alex. Oh, sorry. The last one was from Sam Brown. Thank you, Sam. Okay, Sovereign Alex. We have odd needs for this team. We need an interior O-line, safety, and a linebacker. Otherwise, we're pretty deep in most other places. Do you think John is likely to overpay to fix those issues in the offseason? He's shown a disinterest in spending money, as we just mentioned, so I'm worried he will either overpay or underpay, and we keep having weaknesses there.
I mean, if like 15 years of John Schneider is any indication, they're going to underpay at guard and continue to have issues there.
Yep.
And really, you know, the need at guard is a need that like 27 other teams in the NFL have. So that's not an odd need really at all. Now, what he does at linebacker and safety will be interesting. With Mike's background as a linebacker coach and, you know, having Roquan, this team had Bobby for a long time. Obviously, that's, you know, he was a stalwart of the greatest era of this team's history. And John's shown no hesitation to spend on safety either. So it will be interesting to see how they decide to address those spots. I think a splash. I mean, the other thing that's interesting about that is like a splash is maybe more likely at linebacker, but then you do have Knight and T-Dot, and those are guys that seem pretty popular, and maybe Rayshon Jenkins who's played well, I think, but maybe that's the spot they look to upgrade. I don't know. So I think it's certainly possible that they spend some big draft capital or something like that, but I don't expect them to overpay anywhere, especially at guard.
All right. Okay, let's see. Brian, why do you think, this is from Hawks fan Matt Mann, why do you think Grubb went away from the running game so early in the first half against the Lions? I understand we were down 2 scores right away, but the benefits of a balanced offense seemed pretty evident in the second half.
Yeah, I think we as fans get overly simplistic on this. I certainly do. At times, I think that the Lions have something to say, or the defense has something to say about whether you go with run or pass. In so many situations now, when you've got a quarterback as experienced as Geno Smith, the quarterback has choices that he can make based off of what the defense is presenting. And you already go into that game knowing that the Lions' run defense was one of the best in the NFL, and that you've not been moving people that much on the ground. So I think all those things factor in. And part of the reason there started to be more space in the second half potentially is because the Lions were fully expecting a 21-7 deficit Seahawks team to be come out throwing the ball like all over the yard, like they did in the first half. So I don't think it's as easy as like, hey, just run the ball more. But I think it is encouraging to see that they were able to do that. And as I think I said, the Lions hadn't allowed more than 50 yards rushing to any individual rusher this season. Kenneth Walker had more than that in the second half alone. The Lions hadn't allowed more than 83 yards rushing to any team on the season. Kenneth Walker had 80 himself. The team had 133. So I think that's really encouraging. And I thought Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker's getting all the shine. Zach Charbonnet had a good game. He looked good, and we've been pretty hard on him. So I think we're starting to see that duo start to be, you know, what we hoped they could be.
Nathan, did you cry a little bit when they were both on the field at the same time?
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
You did it? Oh, you should go find it. I'm sure it would make your day. I'm sure.
Did they run or did they pass?
Oh, God, you would ask me that. I don't know now.
It seems like the kind of thing that you do and then you pass the ball.
It's fair. They might have. I can't remember. We'll have to look. All right. So next one. Okay. Nathan, has Spoon played to the level of a top 5 pick since his draft?
Well, if you'd asked
For
me
Mark.
4 weeks.
Mark Suck. Sorry.
Yeah, if you'd asked me 4 weeks ago, I'd say, yeah, absolutely. I don't have any major questions about Spoon. I don't think he's playing that poorly. I do think he had a down game against Detroit, but not terrible, like you were saying, Brian. So, yeah, like I think 80% of his season or his career so far was awesome, and this year he's like slightly disappointing for a player with really high expectations. So I don't think there's any question that he's been worth the pick.
It was interesting. I did Dan Veen's podcast this morning, and he brought up a really good point. It's almost like they're still trying to figure out where they best want to use him. And I thought about that for a little bit, and it's like, yeah, it's like he seems to be kind of all over the place. And so I think that they'll settle in and decide for him. I agree with that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens this year. All right. So another one from Mark. Brian, this one's for you. Is there a more penalized non-offensive lineman, offensive player in the league than DK? He says his personal opinion, results are what matter. Sure, DK was showing toughness by going for the hard yards, but he lost the ball again, like he lost the ball against the Niners a few years ago. So yeah, what good is being tough if it costs your team that much?
Yeah, we didn't get to talk to DK today. I was gonna have the try to find a way to ask him about his approach on those kind of situations, because it's just happened to him at least 4 times over his career. And so I don't know. I think the fumbling thing to me is the bigger issue. The penalties, I don't know about. I'm actually looking up the answer to the question right now. Terrian Arnold is the most penalized non-offensive lineman.
Non-offensive lineman. Yeah.
Terrian Arnold was hilarious.
So funny.
He was out there just tackling receivers mid-route, and then you get a flag, and he'd be like, "What am I supposed to do? Just cover him and not tackle him before the ball's even thrown?"
Yes.
Like, that guy was incredible.
Well,
Carlton Davis is a huge baby, but
what about Carlton Davis?
Yeah.
Going after the ref and not getting a flag for how he went after the ref, and it was a clear penalty. Like, you watch it, he's like literally like just grabbing him. I don't know, like that guy, they got away with more than was called, and there was a lot called. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that
was crazy. Funny. Hey, look, we got an answer to our question in chat. The answer to the question is Sharp lined up at fullback and Walker carried the ball. It was cool, it says.
Nice. We'll have to find that.
Yeah. That was
Thank you for the super
chat. Yeah, that was great. Okay. So it was funny. And the whole Terrian Arnold's like, me? He seems so shocked. It's like, there's no one else around.
The dude who just tackled the receiver. That penalty's on you.
That was correct for you. All right. Let's see. I want answers from both of you from this great question from Braxton. You can only extend one this offseason. The player you don't extend will hold out and then be traded. Who do you extend? Mafe or Woolen? It's a good one. Nathan, go first.
I extend Mafe, I think. Yeah, I think so. I still need to see Woolen be an impact player. So his rookie year, he had a ton of interceptions. Not sustainable. That's fine. Last year, a little bit of a mess. Just not like man coverage grades were really good, but like there were issues. He was in a real sophomore slump learning curve type year. This year, like he's playing well, and maybe some of the impact stuff will come, but Boye Mafe impacts like every game, and makes big plays. And maybe I'm over indexing on the big play aspect of it, which is easy to do when you're talking about a pass rusher versus a cornerback. But I mean, it's a false dichotomy. I pay them both and am very happy. But if you make me pick one right now, I think it's Mafe.
Brian?
I reject the premise of this question. I sign both of them, but to play along, I go Woolen. And I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. One, I actually think Woolen's skill set is more rare and harder to come by and harder to replace. I think it's very rare to find a cornerback that can play the type of coverage that he can play. And I don't think you have anyone on the roster to step into that kind of situation and do anything similar. So you're basically decimating a really critical position on the roster. With Mafe, as much as I love what he's doing at a very valuable position and a very valuable part of the game, you have Derek Hall, you have Uchenna Nwosu, you have Draymond Jones, you have Jamie Sheriff, Like, come on, he's ready to step up. No, but honestly, like, if anything, John Schneider can beat his chest and say, I went back-to-back drafts in the second round and got the 2 best pass rushers other than like Aiden Hutchinson in those drafts. Like, I'll do it again. Like, so like, I'm not as convinced that from a roster construction standpoint, you could withstand losing Woolen as much as you could losing Mafe.
All right. This one is from Silk. More likely scenario: blowout Seahawks win, close Giants win, and why? I think we're going to talk about this game a little bit more in the end here. So we'll get to that question here in a little bit. Okay, this one's from Jen. If John is working the phones right now, who is he targeting and or what position? Nathan, Brian, either one?
I've got a couple, but Nathan, if you want to go first.
No, I'm curious what you think.
So everybody's favorite right now, and it's like not just the Seahawks, like everybody's favorite is Calais Campbell. Signed with the Dolphins. The Dolphins season is over. It's clear it's over. Calais Campbell is still a very effective run defender in the middle of the line who's affordable. If you can pry him away, he makes the Seahawks a better team like tomorrow.
You made me lightheaded with that one. I love him so much. I would die.
And so do they. That's by the way, he's the reason they drafted Mr. 2017 ATV boy back then.
That's right.
So they thought they were getting another Calais Campbell, but
I thought you were going to say LJ Collier, and I'm like, that just makes me so angry all over again.
There's no comparison there.
Oh my God.
The other one that I think I'm going to be the only one probably on this, and it takes some other things to happen, and maybe not. It's on the unlikely stage, but I'll put out there. The Cowboys right now are, what are they, like 2-2 or something like that? I mean, they're not. Yeah, I think I'm double checking. Yes, they're 2-2. Their next slate of games, they play at the Steelers. Could definitely lose that game. They host the Lions. They could definitely lose that game. They go on the road to the 49ers. Definitely could lose that game. And if they lose those 3 games, you're looking at a 2-5 team. Is there a chance that, and then after that, they've got the Falcons and then the Eagles and then the Texans. Like, I think that they could go on a big losing streak. Does Zach Martin become available? And are they interested enough in bringing in another guard? And like, he would be a great get for them. So I'm looking at his contract right now. I don't know how realistic it is to trade for him. He just signed a rework deal. His deal actually ends after this year. I don't know. I don't know if it would work, but that's a guy.
Imagine the competition for him too.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to trade a second round pick or something to get him, probably, because of the amount of teams.
I would trade a second round pick for Zach Martin.
How old is he?
34. Look, old offensive linemen are going to be so much more valuable than they used to be, because anyone that can play that position is like a diamond right now. Like, there's just not many people that can do it. And guards, he should be able to play another 2 or 3 years at least. So I think it's unlikely, but that'd be another one. Anyone Nathan, that you'd throw out?
No, I mean, the Calais Campbell thing is interesting. Not plug your ears, Dayna. I don't really get that one though. I don't think that there's, like, with what they have on the defensive line. Obviously, the injuries right now, but like, I know. Sorry, I don't know. I mean, all depends on cost, right? But right. I don't know. I don't have a, like. Okay, Zach Martin. Yeah, sure. If there's somebody on the offensive line that they love that they can find that becomes available, cool. I don't really feel like messing with the team right now, though. Like, I want to see what these guys do for a whole year. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to go through the team and say, like, who do I want to supplant? Well, okay, Anthony Bradford. But Haynes played okay. Lakin Tomlinson, he's played better. So like, yeah, interior offensive line, sure, but I don't know. There's nothing where I'm like, oh, I want to see what they could do if they just had a guy here. I don't know, corner depth maybe. Like, I don't know. I don't have this burning need to add to the team.
By the way, I'm right there with you, Nathan.
Mhm.
I don't think they need to make trades. If they could get one of the two guys I mentioned, I think they'd be a better team, and they can do it. But I'm kind of curious about how this is going to go.
Yeah, I think it would be probably take an injury, like a season
Yeah.
ending
Mhm.
before them to do that. But I will say this. Calais Campbell is the hugest human I've ever seen in my entire life. I've never felt little in my entire life, and I felt like an infant next to that guy. So bring him on. Just bring him. And he's very nice too. So, but yeah, that would be.
I will
make
say,
me so happy.
if they can make a trade that makes it so I never have to watch Travis Gibson play football again, at least for my team. No offense to that dude, but like, whew, he had a rough game.
Offensive.
All right, yeah, offense to that guy, because yeah, I had to watch him play against the Lions, and that was brutal.
That was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. I think there's just one more. Let me see if I can get. Why won't this pop up all of a sudden? All right, there it is. All right. Silk. Oh, I'm not sure what this is. Silk just says guard and tackle, but there's no other question. I don't know what you're trying to say, Pumpkin, but I'm very sorry about that. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, so those are our Patreon questions for this.
Those are good. Those are good. Thank you to all the folks that support us over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Really, really appreciate it. And if you are not on there, sign up, get access to the Slack channel. You get all of the audio versions of the Hawkblogger Mornings pod and everything else that we do as well. So make sure you sign up there and support the show. All right, let's talk about this Giants game before we wrap. I intentionally did not leave a lot of time because I don't know that there's a lot of interesting things to talk about here. Let's do a quick recap of some of the information and news about this. Malik Neighbors, breakout player, important player for them, reported today in the, quote, early stages of the concussion protocol. Pretty unlikely or pretty rare, I would say, when a player doesn't practice on Wednesday of a game week with concussion, that guy then comes and plays is not common. So I think decent chance, at least 50-50, that he's not going to play. Seahawks injury news we got just before the show started, and it is, again, this is an estimation. They just did a walkthrough, so they didn't really test anything out. So I wouldn't look too much into this. But the guys that sat out that are meaningful, we know Byron Murphy, we heard from the coach today, isn't going to practice this week. He's not coming back for this game. Tyrell Dodson was a name that was did not practice with an ankle and shoulder. The shoulder is something that he's had since like the first game of the season. So, we'll see if that's re-aggravated. Jonathan Hankins didn't practice, but it was not injury related. Boye Mafe did not practice. So Boye Mafe is a question mark for this week. But guys that did come back, Jerome Baker, limited. Julian Love, I think that's a pretty big one, and it wasn't clear, but he was listed as limited. Uchenna Nwosu, limited. Leonard Williams, limited. And Cam Young came off of physically unable to perform, or at least his window to start practicing started, and he was listed as limited. So those are the meaningful names there. We'll really know a lot more tomorrow about that. The other injuries to be aware of for the Giants, Adoree Jackson and Drew Phillips, their cornerbacks, both missed the last game with calf injuries. They did not practice today. And Devin Singletary, their starting running back, is day-to-day with a groin injury. So a bad Giants offense might be without their two best playmakers.
This is giving me a little bit of PTSD, but I kind of want to say, like, don't play any for Seattle. Like, don't play any of these dudes. Give them all the Sunday. Like, this is exactly the game that like Pete would sandbag and they'd lose to Colt McCoy, and like, so that's like giving me a little bit of a heart palpitation here. But I think like if none of these guys play on Sunday, I think that will probably make me happy until they lose 13-10 or something stupid.
Yeah.
You know it's the reason that you know it's true, Dayna. You know this is exactly the Pete sandbag. Whoops, we messed it up game.
No, I was asked this question earlier today. Do I think they should sit those players? If they can play them. You need to stack those wins where you can get them, right? Like, I get it. And we're playing the 49ers on a short week and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? No, get the win and get a statement win and get these guys right before they have to go deal with San Francisco. So I say play them if they can play. If they're on the edge, all right, sit them. But,
yeah. I don't know. I don't have a good feel for how Mike McDonald handles this. My best guess is he seems to be a by the numbers guy. And so sports science says, okay, this is the likelihood of re-injury if you play him. He'll be like, don't play him. I think we saw that with the hamstring injury with Jerome Baker. And like, I think that's how Mike's mind works. I don't think there's emotion going into it. I don't think I'm going to save this guy or not save it. I think he's just trying to figure out, like, this guy's a valuable guy. I want him back and I want him to stay back. So let's just hope we get some good news there. I am like very much more focused on next week, and
that's a mistake though. I hope
it doesn't matter if I'm focused.
I know. I'm just saying, I just was going to say, I hope they are not.
No, they're not. Okay. I asked him about that today, and it was actually interesting. He said, I asked him if they're game planning for both teams at the same time. He's like, no. Pete has said it before, like they absolutely would do that. Mm-hmm. Like they would split some time. And so it's not like a crazy thing that coaches would do that, but he's like, nope, we're focused completely on this. Maybe he's lying, but I don't think he is. What I was going to say is it just would be a shame if the 49ers game is without Byron Murphy, without Leonard Williams, without Boye Mafe. Like that would be a bummer because I'd really like to see how they do with all those guys. But
is there any part of you that wants them to not play so they have the excuse?
Little part. And by the way, I know everybody's been asking about Mr. Grant Cohen. We're in negotiations. Yeah. So just stay tuned, figure out what happens with Grant. But let's talk about this game. What, Dayna, do you think happens in this game, and what do you think the score is going to be?
I think Seattle wins. I think they win handily, and that confidence went up after the Malik Neighbors news today. Because that's their only guy, right? And didn't they? How many? They've only scored like less than 10 touchdowns. Like they're
oh my god,
the Giants. Yeah.
I did a show this morning, Dayna, and I filtered it to show their touchdowns, and then it stopped, and I was like, oh, I must not have had all of them. I was like, no, that's like literally all they've got.
Yeah, there's just like a handful. There's not very many. So then you take away the one guy that can catch them. I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty big. But even with a questionable defense, I think with Seattle is easily going to score in the 20s because they have all season. I think it's going to be probably 27-13 if they're lucky.
I think that's a good score. Nathan, what do you got? How do you think this game's going to go? What are you thinking about in this game? And what do you think the score is going to be?
Well, I think we have some data here. Mike McDonald has never won against an offensive coordinator that he was hired as the head coach of the Seahawks over. Lost to Ben Johnson. Now he's got to go against Mike Kafka. So I think it's 38-7 New York Giants.
Stop it.
Are you serious?
The worst.
No.
That's
I do think you know what? Pete is still in the walls here.
Stop.
No, he is though. Like this team has yet to play a normal game. Like that was one of the things I was most like I got really nervous about is like once Pete left and I was like I really kind of hated all the batshit games that they would always play, but I'm gonna kind of miss them if they just play like normal boring NFL football, and we haven't gotten one of those games yet. I mean maybe the Miami game, but even there they just kind of boat raced them. So I do think that we see and you know you were talking about Ben Johnson like unloading all the powder. We did get like a hook and lateral out of Ryan Grubb. Like we got some weird stuff at like they also just like went all out to win this game. And I think that they're going to dial it back. I think they're going to sandbag a little bit, save it. Just from a play call. I think all NFL teams do this. They don't want to show too much. And so I do think it'll be a little bit of like I don't think it's going to be a super satisfying game. I think it'll be like a sound, convincing win. And it's going to be one of those where, Brian, next week you're like, they won by 9. That's what good teams do against bad teams. Like, and so I'll go, what does that make it like? I'll go 21-12 Seahawks.
Yeah.
Okay. My real preview of this game is as simple as this.
Yeah.
This is your opposing quarterback. Take a good long look. You cannot lose to this man. You cannot lose to this man. And I don't care if Malik Neighbors is playing. I don't care if Devin Singletary is playing. You cannot lose to this man. If you think Mike McDonald was seething after losing to the Lions, you will not hear anything from me about, oh, they were missing players, or, oh, it was tough short week. If they lose to this man, it will be just like the last time I pulled out that paper bag after the Giants came in here with Colt McCoy and won. You cannot lose to this man. So
would it be more upsetting to lose to Danny Dimes or Drew Lock?
More upsetting to lose to Daniel Jones for sure.
Disagree.
I think Drew Lock is at least
Drew Lock. If he beats the Seahawks, is going to do something spectacularly stupid, like to try to stunt on the Seahawks and like run over and like, I don't know, just try to like dunk on Ryan Grubb. Like, you didn't want me here.
Oh, they totally. They wanted it more. They wanted Geno here.
Well, I mean, that's the way they made it sound, but yeah.
I mean, people keep saying Drew Lock might play. Is there some rumor I'm not aware of? Because Daniel Jones is healthy-ish, you know,
for now. The other thing is too, you know who also might really want to beat the Seahawks is, remember when John was like, oh yeah, he got that good deal to go start for the Giants, and the Giants were all pissy about it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like, I have never been so mad watching the Seahawks lose to the new sheriff in town. Who is that Cardinals coach? Arians. Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
And with like that stupid backup quarterback, like running down the sideline when they scored. And there's like strong that kind of loser vibes that could happen if the Giants pull this off.
I'm telling you, the mojo for me is going to be a little odd. I will get to my prediction here in a second, but this is the first time for me ever I'm going to like miss the beginning of this game. My son's running the Portland Marathon down in Portland. If you didn't know, that's where the Portland Marathon's held. And I think it starts at like 7 in the morning, and you know, maybe he can run it in 4 hours if we're lucky. And then I'm going to tear up here in the car. The game's a 1:25 start. There's almost no way I'll get there by kickoff unless I get a couple tickets on the way, which I'm not saying I won't. Business expense. But I'm going to meet my friend in the seats whenever I get there. And so I don't like that. I don't like that. I won't like walking into the stadium as like the plays are. To give you guys some idea, if I have to go to the bathroom during the game, I have figured out exactly what situations to do that in, where to go. I can get to the bathroom and back to my seats before the next play has happened. Like, I don't like missing any of these games. So it's going to be a little bit odd, and I'm hoping that it'll just be fine. I mean, there's not a logical reason why this game should be anything but a win. But man,
right.
We'll see. So I've got the Seahawks winning this one. Dayna, I think you're pretty close on score. The Giants have not given up a lot of points though, and so let me double check what they've done there just before I give my final Oh yeah, hands are washed like
So
as I'm
so
going.
so you're
Yeah.
fanning it this game. You're not reporting it this game.
Oh
You're
yeah,
being
yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
last time was it was a random thing. My buddy wasn't there, so I just decided to not go as a fan. Sorry. So I'm looking now. The Giants, the most they've given up is 28 points in the first game. Every other game is 21 or less, and they faced like the Commanders, the Cowboys, some decent offenses.
Mm.
I think I'm gonna go with like 34-10. I'm gonna go 34-10. I think the Seahawks have not taken the ball away in 3 weeks. I think they're gonna get a couple takeaways in this game. I think we'll probably be talking about, does Devin Witherspoon only get pick sixes against Daniel Jones? And I think the pass rush will come back, and I think that the offense will get untracked. So that's my call, 34-10. So thank you both for coming on for this episode. Thanks to everybody who has tuned in for the night. I will have a show tomorrow morning where I'm going to play. I think I've got a couple ideas of what we'll do, but there was some really good sound from Mike McDonald today. I'm going to talk about some of that. And we'll have some other good stuff coming as well. Tomorrow is the Ryan Grubb and Adam Dirty press conference. It'll be Geno Smith press conference. So there'll be a lot of good content coming tomorrow as well. By the way, another benefit of being a Patreon member is that I post my locker room interviews there for Patreon members to listen to. There's a good one from Laken Tomlinson today and a good one from Miles Adams up there today. So patreon.com/hawkblogger. If you haven't already given the show a like and click subscribe, please do. Make sure you follow Dana O'Gorman at Dana OG on Twitter and Nathan Ernst at Nathan E11. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. This has been episode 334 of not Hawk Blogger Mornings, of Real Hawk Talk. I was waiting when I was going to make that mistake, and it's come. The time has come.